Discover the incredible truth, how a hidden lie transformed a woman's revenge against an arrogant hospital administrator. Anna's hands trembled as she held the denial letter, the words blurring in her vision. She had dedicated herself to nursing, pouring her heart into every patient no matter how difficult the day had been. The prestigious medical training program felt like the last chance to elevate her life as a single mother. Yet here was Greg's cold dismissal. Your background isn't dynamic enough. The bitterness of his words festered, igniting a storm of emotions: anger, sadness, disbelief. How could he so casually deflate her aspirations? She had fought for years, every shift a step toward a better future for Emma, her bright 16-year-old daughter. Yet now it felt like all that hard work had been for nothing. Greg's condescending aura loomed larger than the hospital itself, a symbol of privilege that wrestled with her every attempt to progress. The weight of regret sank in, a heavy cloak of resignation that threatened to suffocate her. Did she have enough fight left to confront him? Doubt gnawed at her as she sat on the edge of her bed, breathing irregularly, the stark reality closing in. What if she had been deluding herself? She could already feel the whispers of inadequacy crawl into her mind, undermining her determination. With nightfall creeping into her tiny apartment, she dismissed thoughts of giving up. Anna had fought through sleepless nights and the endless cycles of bills. She would push back against this unfairness. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Determined to find her voice, Anna rummaged through old boxes in the attic, a place filled with shadows and memories. As she unearthed dusty papers and yellowing photographs, the past echoed through her heart, each piece of evidence unraveling the humdrum narrative of her family. Then the discovery hit her with a force she couldn't ignore. Documents revealing that her grandfather was a renowned physician, his contributions overshadowed by a cover-up that confined his revolutionary work to silence. Her pulse quickened in mixed waves of pride and disbelief. How could her roots hide such a legacy, especially against the very backdrop of her struggle? Anna's mind raced. She was no longer just a nurse. A determination to reclaim the family dignity surged through her veins like a lifeblood. But how? Left unaddressed, Greg's disdain could easily shatter the fragile dream she had of becoming something more. As she shared her findings with Emma, their eyes gleamed with newfound purpose. Yet a shudder of fear infiltrated Anna's resolve. What would uncovering the truth about her grandfather's legacy cost? The idea of confronting Greg and the inevitable truths that might unfold left her feeling both powerful and vulnerable. The balance of justice and resignation hung heavy in the air as she prepared for their inevitable clash, the stakes looming larger than ever. Would she be capable of reclaiming her dignity, or would the echoes of the past drag her down? An urgent tension ignited within her, forcing her to face the truths she never wanted to confront. She steadied herself at the edge of change, the room around her tight with anxiety, and the question reverberated through her mind. Does she dare invoke the spirit of her long-hidden legacy in her quest for justice, or will she be consumed by the shadows of a past that left her unprepared? As dawn broke across the skyline, Anna felt an unfamiliar resolve emerging from the shroud of despair. The anxiety that had gripped her the night before was now a distant echo, replaced by the rhythmic pulse of purpose. She needed to confront Greg, and the weight of her grandfather's legacy propelled her forward. As she made her way to the hospital, a storm brewed within her, swirling with anticipation and dread. Arriving at the bright, sterile corridors of the hospital, Anna forced her breath to steady. Each step felt deliberate, echoing the countless footfalls of her past as she navigated through the congestion of nurses and patients. She recalled every moment of exhaustion, every heartfelt connection with her patients, and realized she was no ordinary nurse. Her identity was intertwined with that legacy, and it no longer felt trivial. The administrative office loomed ahead, heavily fortified by the symbol of hierarchy, Greg's undeniable arrogance personified. She knocked briskly on the door, a writer tapping the first piece of a story yet to be fully told. "Come in," he barked, the impatience dripping from his voice. As she entered, she noted the chaos of papers littering his desk, a stark contrast to the pristine facade he maintained. "Anna," he acknowledged, lifting his gaze momentarily before returning to his work. "What do you want?" The question hung in the air, charged and challenging. "I'm here to discuss my application to the training program," she replied, her voice unwavering. An amused chuckle escaped Greg, the kind that stung like a bee. "What about it? I already said you don't meet the criteria." "Let me ask you something," she countered, her heart pounding. "Do you even know who I am, who my grandfather was?" The words spilled from her lips, the urgency clawing at her resolve. For a fleeting moment, surprise flickered in his eyes. "Yes, I know about your grandfather, a great physician, but that was in the past. Times have changed." Anna leaned in, a fierce glint igniting her gaze. "Exactly. His past holds weight, and I refuse to let your pathetic standards diminish that legacy. You dismiss my application based on your arbitrary definitions of dynamism while overlooking my experience and potential." Greg arched an eyebrow, intrigued yet defensive. "Your grandfather's reputation won't save you." "No, but it inspires me," she shot back, her voice escalating. "You think I'm just a nurse? I've lived in those wards, and I've poured myself into caring for my patients. I know their stories, their struggles. This isn't just a job to me, this is my calling. I want to carve my own path, not hide in his shadow." The confrontation wasn't merely about the program. It reached deeper, clawing at the layers of identity that Greg had attempted to strip away. As his smug expression faltered, Anna pressed on. "What have you done to advance the hospital, to celebrate those who serve? You sit atop your pedestal, securing your power, while people like me, with real hands-on experience, are left unheard." The battle of wills intensified, each sharpening word a dagger of challenge. In that moment, Anna saw not only an arrogant administrator, but a man built on fear. If she could confront his layers of facade, perhaps she could excavate her own. Anna felt a shift as she turned to leave, her heart still racing. There was strength within her she didn't fully understand. She'd put herself on the line, exposed her vulnerabilities, and faced down her fears. Frosty silence trailed behind her but left a warmth igniting inside her spirit. Suddenly, the weight of the past felt lighter, an artifact no longer binding her. As Anna stepped outside, she noticed Emma waiting, concern etched on her young face. "How did it go?" "It's just the beginning, Em." Her heart raced with possibilities, a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. "I found my voice, and I'm ready to wield it." But as they walked away together, a nagging pull surfaced in Anna's thoughts. What would be the cost of challenging someone so powerful? Little did she know that the upcoming days would demand even more courage, unraveling deeper truths. The true battle loomed ahead, and she was far from finished. Would her burgeoning strength be enough to unearth the secrets buried beneath decades of lies? Anna barely slept that night, the confrontation with Greg replaying in vivid detail behind her closed eyelids. She lay on her bed, wrestling with doubt and excitement, while the incessant tick of the clock punctuated her thoughts. Had she truly made her stand, or was she merely stirring the waters of an already tumultuous sea? The memory of Greg's derisive laugh haunted her, each chuckle a reminder of the obstacles ahead. Days passed as she returned to the hospital, and while her interactions with staff were cordial, the unyielding presence of Greg loomed over her aspirations like a dark cloud. Every time she crossed paths with him in the hallways, his dismissive attitude only solidified her determination. It became apparent that she could either sink deeper into her frustration or rise with it. The choice was hers. But which path would foster the growth she so desperately sought? Listening to fellow nurses discussing their cases helped anchor her resolve. Each story of triumph and despair they shared ignited a fire within her, connecting her to the fabric of the hospital community she sought to enhance. As she cared for her patients, Anna became more conscious of her unique position. She was not only a caregiver, but also an advocate for their voice, a perspective they desperately needed. For each life she treated, she felt her grandfather's guiding spirit, his legacy fueling her fight against the complacency that encumbered the administration. Determined to sharpen her skills and prove her worth to Greg, Anna enrolled in evening courses on clinical leadership. With every lecture, she gleaned insights that reignited her passion and inspired her approach to nursing. She took meticulous notes, soaking in strategies and theories that would arm her with knowledge, tools she planned to wield like a warrior's sword in her relentless pursuit of advancement. Emma, always supportive, noticed the changes. "You're different, Anna," she remarked one afternoon as they enjoyed coffee. "It's like you found a new purpose." "I have," Anna replied, excitement rippling through her. "This is more than just about the training program anymore. It's about transformation. I realize I can elevate the patient's experience beyond the walls of this hospital and inspire change from within." Just as Anna started to feel empowered, she received a call from a former patient's family requesting her presence for an important meeting. The connection struck her deeply. She had cared for the patient during the final stages of their illness, providing not just medical attention, but emotional support. This family sought her insight, understanding that her narrative intertwined with their loved one's journey. Arriving at their home, Anna was engulfed in the weight of their loss, yet she remained steadfast. As they recounted the hurdles faced during treatment, the miscommunications, the bureaucratic delays, Anna began to see a reflection of her struggle against Greg's authority. The family looked to her for guidance, and in that moment, Anna recognized the depth of her influence. This wasn't merely about one person's fate, it was a systemic issue. The dialogue stirred something profound within her. She realized the potential for greater systemic change lay not just in her aspirations, but also in the experiences shared by patients and families. They were the real undercurrents of her fight, the essence of what she battled against in Greg's office. Days turned into weeks, and with every passing encounter, Anna grew more attuned to her capabilities and responsibilities. She sensed her narrative merging with each patient's experience, creating a collective message demanding action. Determined to share their stories alongside her own, Anna meticulously prepared to confront Greg once more, this time with invaluable testimony from her patients propelling her forward. Little did she know, however, a driving force from her past would soon complicate her efforts, beckoning her to confront not only the demons inside the hospital, but also the personal ones she thought she'd overcome. The time had come to prepare for the most intense confrontation yet. Would her newfound voice resonate loudly enough to dismantle the towering walls of ignorance, or would it expose her vulnerabilities just as quickly? Anna stood in front of the mirror, forcing herself to a calm exterior as an unsettling storm brewed inside her. This meeting with Greg would not only determine her professional trajectory, but also force her to confront her deepest insecurities. She adjusted her scrubs, thinking of the patients who depended on her determination. Their stories had crystallized her purpose. She could not allow fear to dictate her actions any longer. The day was overcast, matching the tension that hung over her thoughts. She arrived at the hospital earlier than usual, her mind replaying the approach she would take. Each point she planned to discuss was vivid in her mind. She would share the family's narrative and illustrate how their experiences epitomized the flaws within the system. But as she approached the administrative office, her confidence wobbled at the thought of Greg's piercing gaze. "Hey, Anna," Emma called, pulling her back from her spiral. "You ready for this?" "Not entirely, but I will be," Anna admitted, grateful for Emma's unwavering support. "Just remember, you have the power of those stories behind you. You're not alone in this." Emma's words anchored Anna, infusing her with a sudden warmth that urged her onward. As Anna entered the office, the familiar sterile aroma of antiseptic combined with an undercurrent of disinterest filled the air. Greg was seated behind his imposing desk, his disapproving frown greasing the gears of Anna's heart with anxiety. But there was no turning back. She gathered her fortitude and stepped forward. "Anna," he began, looking up with feigned interest, "what can I do for you today?" "Actually, Greg, I have something important to discuss with you," she said, surprising herself with her composed tone. She motioned for him to focus as she delivered her meticulously crafted points. The family's experiences, their struggles, the bureaucratic obstacles, she laid it all out, each word imbued with the urgency of their realities. As she spoke, Anna felt her fears waning. Her passion for advocacy blazed through her. She watched as Greg's expression shifted from detached amusement to discomfort, reflecting the weight of accountability for his negligence. "Look, Anna, I appreciate your dedication," he interrupted abruptly, "but these are just anecdotes. We can't change policy based on personal stories." Inevitably, his dismissal rattled her. "But how can we not? These stories highlight the very human side of our profession. Treating patients isn't just about following protocol, it's about understanding their journeys. If we disregard that, we fail them. What you fail to understand is that every patient is just one among thousands. It's a numbers game." Greg leaned back, crossing his arms as if sealing the discussion. But the indignation within Anna ignited. Was he truly that blinded by numbers he would disregard lives? And how many lives are you willing to gamble for efficiency, Greg? You're missing the point entirely. She ran a hand through her hair, wrestling her frustration into clarity. For a moment, tension anchored their gazes, but Anna could feel the edge of determination sharpen within her. This wasn't solely about her battle against Greg, it was about forging a path for those left unheard in the chaos of the system. She sharply drew in breath, feeling the resonance of every patient's story echoing within her. "I refuse to let this conversation end here. The systemic issues we face are rooted in anonymity and indifference. I will not rest until we begin to address them meaningfully." As she turned to leave, a lingering sensation crept in, an awareness that she had crossed an invisible threshold. She had not just confronted Greg, she had awakened a dormant part of herself, one that thrives on challenge and transformation. Walking back to the nurse's station, the adrenaline reverberated through her veins, leaving her exhilarated yet unsettled. Had she pushed too far? She was prepared for Greg's retaliation, but could she endure the fallout from this seismic shift? The thought that her confrontation could trigger not just backlash from Greg, but also more scrutinies from her own colleagues loomed large in her mind. Would they stand by her side, or would they buckle under the pressure of Greg's authority? As Anna contemplated her next steps, she felt the weight of the impending scrutiny, and the realization that her journey toward redressing policies would be fraught with trials she hadn't yet envisioned. A newfound determination coursed through her, but the fear of isolation now hung palpably, asking whether she was ready to brave this fight alone. This was only the beginning. What challenges awaited her in the wake of her confrontation? Anna paced through the halls of the hospital, each step a complex interplay of exhilaration and trepidation. The residue of her confrontation with Greg lingered like a shadow clinging to her resolve. Her colleagues, typically busy tending to their patients, now felt like a sea of faces judging her. She steadied her breath, reminding herself that she had chosen to advocate for change, but every heartbeat echoed her internal fears. As she approached the nurses' station, whispers floated through the air, the familiar sound morphing into an unwanted spotlight. They were murmurs of concern, surprise, and skepticism. "Did you hear about Anna? What was she thinking? Does she even know who she's up against?" The rumors dripped with a judgment that stung. "Anna, are you all right?" Emma's voice broke through the clamor, concern etching her features. "I'll be fine," Anna replied, though the quiver in her voice betrayed her unsteadiness. "Just feeling the weight of it all." Emma leaned closer, her expression serious. "You did what most wouldn't have the gut to do. Change doesn't happen without ruffling feathers." Yet in the chaos of the station, Anna felt an unsettling isolation. She wondered if this solitary path of confrontation would lead to dismissal among her colleagues, and further entrenchment of Greg's grip on the system. The thought turned the adrenaline of her victory sour, morphing it into apprehension. That evening, Anna sat down to review policy documents, determined to grasp the full landscape of the bureaucracy she was against. Each line underscored the enormity of the challenge before her. Faceless rules written in a language far removed from the individuals whose lives these policies governed. With every document she studied, her resolve crystallized. She needed not only to confront Greg, but also to collect evidence, to frame her advocacy in a way that made it irrefutable. Late into the night, Anna outlined the core issues, cross-referencing patient stories with the stark impersonal policies. The stark contrast between the statistics she gathered and the narratives she documented was revealing. It was no longer just about numbers. It was about the palpable impact those numbers had on real lives. As dawn broke, Anna laid out her plan. Change would demand not just passion, but strategy. She envisioned forming a coalition of like-minded professionals who could bolster her stance. This alliance could neutralize her vulnerability by showing the administration that her concerns resonated broadly. Fueled by fresh clarity, she approached Emma the next day, proposing her idea. "What if we rallied a small group to discuss these issues together? If we present a unified front, we might instigate actual change." Emma's eyes brightened. "Absolutely. If we can gather enough support, it'll speak volumes." "But Anna," her face turned grave, "you know Greg won't take this lightly. He might retaliate." "That's a risk I have to take," Anna said, her voice steady. "I refuse to remain silent while patients suffer. They deserve a louder voice." With each passing day, Anna strategized with a small core of passionate colleagues. They exchanged stories, drafted proposals, and meticulously prepared for future meetings. The camaraderie began easing her loneliness, but the specter of Greg's power loomed larger, casting doubt on their efforts. Then, just as hope started to take root, a notification flared on Anna's phone during their weekly meeting. It was a message from Greg, a summons to his office to discuss recent discrepancies. The weight of dread settled in her stomach, a reminder that they were not just challenging a policy, but the very structure of their workplace. As she looked around at her team, trepidation replaced the enthusiasm in the room. Would they stand alongside her when the coming storm hit? Anna had ignited a spark, but now faced a critical question. Was she truly ready to bear the weight of the consequences? Or would the system's might extinguish the flame of their initiative before it even took flight? The storm was brewing, and Anna would soon have to decide how fierce the fight would become. Anna stepped into Greg's office, her heart thundering against her ribcage. The stark fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting an unflattering glow on the sterile room that mirrored the tension pooling in her stomach. She had anticipated this meeting, yet the immediacy of it pressed against her like a physical force. Greg sat behind his desk, a steel facade of authority. His fingers tapped rhythmically against the polished wood, each tap a reminder of the power he wielded. "Anna," he began, his voice smooth as silk but laced with underlying menace. "I've noticed some discrepancies in your documentation. Care to explain?" With every word he spoke, Anna felt the weight of her choices tumbling down around her. She had exposed vulnerabilities in a system designed to protect the status quo. And now, here she was, confronting the man who sat at the helm of that very machine. But she couldn't falter. Not now. "Those discrepancies reflect systemic failures, Greg," she replied, meeting his gaze head-on. "Patients deserve better, and I won't remain silent when their well-being is at stake." His expression shifted only slightly, eyes narrowing in calculation. "You think this is a game? Challenging the foundations of this hospital can have serious repercussions." A flinch ran through her body as she fought to wrestle her anxiety into submission. She recognized that to ascend through layers of bureaucracy required more than resolve. It demanded clever navigation through its treacherous currents. "I understand the stakes," she stated, squeezing the words out with fierce conviction. "But avoiding the truth will only lead to more consequences down the line." For a moment he assessed her, analyzing the resolve in her eyes, searching for signs of weakness. But Anna had spent nights compiling evidence, molding her arguments with precision, and refining her resolve into a coherent narrative. She had spoken with patience, collected stories that transcended numbers, and now she stood ready to present the case that could change everything. "And what makes you think you're right?" he challenged, his tone low and mocking. "Those who challenge me have a way of disappearing around here." The threat hung in the air, palpable and heavy. Doubt flickered momentarily, a volatile emotion threatening to ensnare her. But then Anna thought of the patients, the faces that had crowded her mind as she worked to document their stories. She felt a surge of determination. "Because it's not just about me, it's about them." His smirk faltered slightly, the undercurrent of uncertainty breaking his facade. "You're making a formidable enemy." The taste of her defiance electrified the atmosphere. "I refuse to be intimidated. This isn't just a fight for what's right, it's a fight for my integrity and for the patients who can't fight for themselves." With a silent inward vow, Anna stepped closer, the power dynamic beginning to shift. She recognized that her assertiveness was a potent tool, a discoverable strength she had previously kept tethered. Setting aside trepidation, she forced herself to embrace a mindset of assertiveness, tempered with strategy. Emerging from Greg's office, she paused to collect herself. The pressure of the moment receded slightly. Yes, dangers loomed ahead. Retaliation was a distinct possibility. Yet she had made it clear that she wouldn't back down. Gathering her thoughts, Anna met her team later that day. Their faces reflected a shared resolve, a quiet confidence growing in the wake of her confrontation. They would move forward, armed with the knowledge she had compiled and the fire ignited by her courage. However, as they brainstormed next steps, Anna's phone buzzed again, this time with a familiar name. A whistleblower advocating for rampant reform in the hospital system. The message promised revelations that could further bolster her case against Greg. Curiosity wove into her resolve for change. She felt the embers of a greater truth calling her to action. But what deeper secrets might this encounter uncover about her workplace, and about herself? Anna was on the brink of something monumental, and she understood now that the time had come to fully embrace her fight. Would the revelations propel her initiative forward, or push her further into peril? The implications hung in the balance, beckoning her to uncover more than just policies in distress. The real challenge was only just beginning. Anna stared at her phone, heart racing as she processed the message. The whistleblower had been elusive, an elusive figure in the shadows of the hospital's bureaucracy. Just the thought of meeting this individual coursed through her with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. What intentions lay behind the offer of help? As her colleagues finalized their plans, Anna excused herself, seeking a quiet corner in the bustling hospital. She knew the meeting could be the catalyst for a significant shift. This wasn't just about confronting Greg anymore. It was about upending the entire system, about ensuring that the stories she had documented would no longer be swept under the rug. She took a deep breath, reminding herself she needed to be ready, not just for information, but for whatever revelations might come. The following day brought her to a cafe nearby, a nondescript place where secrecy felt more secure. Faces flickered around her, nurses on their breaks, doctors discussing patients, all cloaked in normalcy. She scanned the room until her eyes landed on a figure in the corner, a woman with sharp features and a gaze that seemed both knowing and wary. "Anna?" the woman asked, tilting her head as Anna approached. "I'm Lisa." "Thank you for meeting me," Anna began, trying to project calmness despite her racing heart. As they settled into dialogue, Lisa's words flowed like a revelation, unraveling a tapestry of deceit that spanned the hospital's corridors. "This place is built on shadows and whispers. People are afraid to speak, afraid of losing what little they have." Anna felt her conviction hardening as she listened. Hidden budgets, falsified records, and manipulated statistics danced before her in vivid color. Each detail became a thread she could weave into her case against Greg. But more importantly, it painted a clearer picture of her surroundings. A culture that thrived on silence and obedience, rewarding compliance while punishing dissent. "Why are you sharing this with me?" Anna questioned, her voice steady, every bit of her professional training pushed to the forefront. "You could face consequences too." Lisa leaned in, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. "Because, like you, I used to care. But that's a defect in this place. Caring is dangerous. I don't want your fight to just be another lost cause." Anna felt the magnitude of that statement resonate deep within her. Wasn't that the very fear she had faced in Greg's office? The fear of being silenced? Here, in this moment of connection, she felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. The truth could destabilize everything they had known, turning fear into empowerment. "Navigating these waters won't be easy. No one will stand with you," Lisa warned. "They'll isolate you, make you doubt your resolve." Anna met Lisa's gaze, searching for remnants of her own doubts, the remnants of her hesitations. Yet, surprisingly, those shadows seemed to grow dimmer, pushed back by the bright flame of purpose burning within her. "No one stands alone forever," she replied, her tone deliberate. "I have patients who need change, people who deserve better. I can't turn away from that now, not after everything." As the conversation unfolded further, an unexpected spark ignited within Anna, a realization that her vulnerabilities could transform into strengths. She could invoke change, not just through documentation, but through collective experience. All those patient stories weren't just statistics. They were the fuel to her fire, the backdrop to the revolution she was beginning to conceive. They parted ways with a renewed sense of direction, Anna's mind swirling with plans and possibilities. But as she walked back into the hospital, her senses heightened. She couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The whispers she now understood better lingered in the walls, unseen forces ready to intervene. Was she stepping into a new dawn or awakening a dormant beast ready to strike? She felt the stakes rising, the tension intensifying, her resolve solidifying into an armor she would need for the battles to come. Who else was watching her every move, biding their time? The real struggle had begun, and she was no longer just a participant. She was a contender. But with every choice she made, every step she took, she had begun to attract attention, and soon a decision would have to be made that could alter the course of her fight entirely. Would she stand firm against whatever storm loomed on the horizon, or would the weight of silence prove too heavy to bear? Anna settled back into her routine at the hospital, but an undercurrent of anxiety tugged at her thoughts with every passing hour. The normal rhythms of her day transformed into a haunting backdrop for the internal turmoil she now carried. She could no longer blindly accept the status quo. Each patient interaction felt charged with unspoken truths, a reminder of the stakes involved. Determined to uphold her newfound purpose, Anna began crafting a strategy. Lisa's revelations had awakened a fierce desire for justice, sparking ideas that coalesced into action. Her meticulous nature came to the forefront as she plotted her course, detailing both the systemic failures in the hospital and the narratives of those who had suffered in silence. With every keystroke, Anna was building a foundation fueled by compassion and urgency. However, the walls felt increasingly stifling. Rumors whispered through corridors, and she sensed the scrutiny of her colleagues. Greg was not merely a single adversary. He epitomized a larger threat. As the director of the hospital, he represented the oppressive culture Anna sought to dismantle. His recent encounters with her held a palpable tension, an awareness that the power he wielded could crush her aspirations like a fragile flower beneath a boot. One evening, as she prepared to leave, Anna found herself in an empty break room with a cup of lukewarm coffee. She needed a moment to collect her thoughts. The flickering fluorescent lights were a stark reminder of the broken systems lurking in the shadows. Quietly, she reflected on the advice Lisa had given her: trust no one. Confidence had to be nurtured in solitude. But a question prickled at the back of her mind. What if someone saw the potential in her fight? In that moment of vulnerability, a memory surfaced, a conversation with a former mentor who had taught her resilience in the face of adversity. Dr. Green had once said, "The ones who change the world are those who stand up when everyone else chooses to stay silent." Anna clutched her phone, staring at the screen as if it held the means to ignite her resolve. Dr. Green had been bold, had faced threats head-on. If she could embody that spirit, perhaps she could carry the torch of truth beyond personal risk. Anna quickly set out to compile her findings. The data, the anecdotal accounts from patients, the patterns Lisa had outlined, all of it became her ammunition. Hypothetical drafts of an exposé circulated in her mind, but it was the personal stories that resonated most deeply within her. Their voices demanded to be heard, and she was determined to amplify them. The next few days became a whirlwind of gathering evidence. She enlisted the help of allies whom she cautiously trusted, nurses who had echoed her sentiments in silent agreement, and supportive staff in obscured corners of the hospital seeking change. Each meeting brought about a wave of solidarity, making Anna feel less alone and more part of a clandestine network dedicated to uncovering the truth. Yet, as her endeavors progressed, the murmurings morphed into a gale. Somebody was watching her movements more closely than she had anticipated. They started to shut down her attempts at collaboration, and misinformation subtly seeped into their conversations. On a particularly tense afternoon, while reviewing patient reports, a message pinged on her phone. It was from Lisa, short and cryptic. "Be careful. They are on to you." A chill slithered down Anna's spine as she absorbed the meaning. In a heartbeat, she shifted from hopeful catalyst to wary strategist. Unsure of who would wield the dagger next, she felt the isolation creeping back in. The walls of the hospital, once familiar, now loomed like a cage. and she realized that she must gather all she could before the walls closed in. Pushing through her fear, Anna steeled her resolve. The time was rapidly approaching for a decisive move against Greg and the entrenched culture he represented. She was no longer merely a contender. She was ready to be the architect of her own destiny. But as she prepared for the next step, a ghost of doubt lingered. How would she confront Greg, knowing the potential consequences? The thought ignited a deep-seated conflict within her. Was she ready to risk everything for a cause that had become so personal? In that moment, a voice reverberated in her mind, the final admonition of Dr. Green. Sometimes you have to light a fire before the world changes. The tension tightened around her heart, a powerful reminder that change had a cost. What would be her first strike in this battle, and would it reveal her as a hero or a target? Anna clenched her fists, determination steeped in uncertainty as she plotted her next move, hinting at an imminent confrontation where stakes were already far too high. Anna's heart raced as she paced the small confines of the break room, her thoughts spiraling. The flickering fluorescent lights mirrored her inner chaos, and she struggled to quell the rising tide of uncertainty. Each potential confrontation with Greg loomed larger in her mind. The stakes were escalating. But Anna reminded herself of the strength she had begun to cultivate. This was not merely about her anymore. It was about the lives affected by systemic failures that she was determined to expose. With every interaction in the hospital, her resolve deepened. Patient stories filled her with a fierce determination. She was drawn to their suffering, transforming her anxiety into a fire that propelled her forward. The lists and narrative arcs she created became more detailed. They were not just collections of facts, but rather the very embodiment of hope. Every anecdote etched into her records tightened the threads of her strategy, forming a tapestry of accountability. Gathering her allies became increasingly complicated. Trust was a fragile commodity, and tension saturated their clandestine meetings. Each nurse or staff member she approached tested her ability to discern sincerity from caution, friendship from fear. The whispers of betrayal lingered in the air as fractures threatened to surface within her team. An ally from the radiology department cautiously shared procedural details of mishandled cases, but Anna could see the flicker of concern in their eyes. They were walking a fine line, and the danger of exposure felt imminent. In one such meeting, the rhythm of Anna's thoughts shifted when Sam, a junior nurse with an unexpected passion for data, revealed her unexpected background in investigative journalism. This revelation sparked a new avenue of possibility for Anna. Together, they began to dissect the hospital's practices, employing the skill set Sam had tucked away. Their synergy sparked a creative brilliance, one that Anna had hoped for but had yet to find. If there was a way to frame their arguments with the power of storytelling, they could transcend mere accusations. Yet with each stride they took, shadows loomed larger. Anna could sense Greg's presence more acutely. Rumors rippled through the corridors. Conversations halted abruptly as Anna walked past, sideway glances exchanged under the dim lighting. She was becoming the hunted in her own workplace. With every passing day, the reality of her situation encased her more tightly. In a moment of rare vulnerability, Sam expressed her fears. What if the commitment to reveal the truth cost them their careers? The sincerity in her voice resonated deeply with Anna. Here was a moment that forced Anna to confront her own motivations. What was she truly willing to sacrifice? Her hands trembled slightly as she recalled Dr. Green's stern gaze. His insistence that meaningful change required confronting the ugly truths head-on. The resolve that had propelled her thus far morphed into a palpable tension that corded her chest. The decision now weighed heavily. Anna had come to develop a sense of responsibility not just for the patients, but also for those who were willing to fight alongside her. She could not lead them into what could become a quagmire of destruction without consideration of the implications. The confrontation with Greg seemed inevitable, but she needed a viable strategy to minimize fallout for both herself and her allies. As the clock ticked ominously on the wall, Anna reached for her phone, fingers hovering over the screen with hesitation. She needed a plan that turned the walls of her current reality into stepping stones for something greater. But just as the thought solidified, a new notification flashed. Her heart stopped. It was a message from an anonymous account. Someone is watching your every move. Play carefully. Dread broke over her like a cold wave, morphing her resolve into a supercharged urgency. Anna knew that the time for invention was closing tight around her. What if she were too late in her preparations? The facade she'd been building could shatter, exposing not just her, but everyone who had believed in her cause. She tightened her grip on her phone. Change required audacity. But how could she find her surprise capability in the chaos that awaited? Anna resolved to refocus. Planning her next steps needed an intricate blend of meticulous defense and lightning strategy. There was no turning back, but the path ahead remained fraught with treachery, and she would only succeed by navigating the complexities wisely. In the heart of uncertainty, she felt the embers of determination flickering once more. It was time to test not just her courage, but also her cunning. Would she step into the light or retreat into shadow? The choice loomed ever larger with every heartbeat. As adrenaline surged, Anna wondered whether her commitment to justice would illuminate the truth or land her under Greg's crushing machinations. How far was she willing to go? The clock was ticking, and the stage was set for the confrontation ahead. Anna emerged from her week of introspection fortified with clarity and resolve. The whirlwind of emotions she had faced in the hospital had forged a tougher steel in her spirit, a determination to pursue justice not just for herself, but for every silent story clamoring for recognition. Following the warning from the anonymous tipster, she carefully considered her plans and the people around her. No longer could she afford to tread lightly. She diligently outlined her next moves, knowing that she had both allies and adversaries woven into her surroundings. The energy that surged from collaborating with Sam had opened a pathway. They would not just challenge Greg, they would dismantle the complacency that had loomed over the hospital for years. In the days that followed, Anna organized a confidential meeting with her trusted allies, laying out her vision. We need to amplify the truths we have gathered, and it's time to bring them to light, she articulated with passion. This isn't just about confronting Greg or this administration, it's about ensuring every patient finds a voice in our hospital system. We can leverage our stories into a cohesive documentation that can't be ignored. Familiar nods exchanged between the group, a silent acknowledgement of the risks involved. If they were cornered, they would either emerge victorious or be crushed. Anna chose to lean into the collective strength of the stories they had each experienced. Each member began contributing, harnessing incident reports and patient testimonials that elucidated systematic neglect. Together, they whittled down their evidence into a compelling narrative around compassion and care lost in the bureaucracy. As the meeting concluded and hope simmered around them, Anna felt emboldened. But when she entered work the next day, an unsettling chill ran down her spine. Greg's watchful gaze had transformed into something palpable. The air was laden with threats that beckoned from every corner of the hospital. Moments later, she received an unexpected summons to Greg's office. She steeled herself, recalling her stockpile of evidence. She wouldn't allow herself to be intimidated. Each calculated step towards his door exacerbated the tension inside her, but also thickened her resolve. "Anna," Greg greeted disdainfully, eyes slashing through the pretense of pleasantry. "You've been busy." "What can I say? I'm dedicated to my patients," she countered, digging deep to find composure. "Let's cut the pleasantries, shall we? You're beginning to stir trouble, and it's not welcome here." His voice resonated with a chill that heightened the stakes. "I'm just calling into question the operational integrity of the hospital. You're far too focused on revenue," Anna pressed back, emboldened by righteous anger. "Patients are suffering because of mismanaged priorities, and it's time someone holds you accountable for that." A flicker of surprise passed over Greg's features before narrowing into an icy response. "Let's be clear. You press on this path, and you might find that the consequences are quite severe, consequences that could overshadow your career entirely. People have lost their jobs for less." Anna straightened, and a determined fire lit her demeanor. "You may think power gives you the ability to manipulate and intimidate, but I recognize the power of truth, and I will not be silenced. Every case I've documented matters, and I'm prepared to take it beyond these walls if need be." The confrontation echoed across the sterile confines of the office, cracking the veneer of authority he wore like armor. Pulse racing, Anna turned to exit, feeling an unfamiliar sense of agency empowering her stride. She had transformed into an unexpected contender in this arena, undaunted by the institution that once felt impenetrable. As she stepped outside, a sense of liberation washed over her, mingling with the weight of uncertainty. But the warmth of the truth bolstered Anna even as notions of retaliation crept along the edges of her thoughts. She had tasted her own unyielding strength, the very essence that would force change through courage, clarity, and purpose. In the following weeks, she found herself amidst an ongoing struggle, balancing patient care with evidence collection. Through it all, the growing camaraderie among her allies sharpened. Their intricately compiled remarks and stories began to take shape, coalescing into a report that bore a weight of indisputable evidence, revealing systemic failures begging for correction. Then, finally, the moment arrived. Her team submitted their documentation to the board of directors, armed with every account, statistic, and patient story they had woven. Anna felt a profound sense of accomplishment, a quiet surge of pride in her chest. She had worked relentlessly to stand for something larger than herself, a palpable sense of lawfulness flooding her veins. As whispers spread and attention became unavoidable, Anna sensed the tide turning, both for her colleagues and her patients. In that dawning moment, she realized that her battle had shifted from personal vengeance to a collective call for reformation, a movement that harnessed every ounce of her resilience and strength. Days turned into weeks as Anna braced for feedback from the board, navigating a landscape fraught with unspoken resistance. But with each passing moment, she remained anchored in the truth of her experiences, proud of her journey and the resolve it had demanded. Eventually, she received an invitation to a crucial meeting with the administration, the very people whose authority had once felt overbearing. This time, she felt no trepidation. She knew that she was armed with more than just her story. She carried the voices of many who had long been silenced. Sitting before the board, as she articulated her findings and established a foundation for reform, Anna felt a surge of unyielding empowerment, a conviction that would reverberate long after her presentation ended. She had fought for what was right, embracing a journey marked by transformation and growth. In that moment of victory, Anna stood firmly at the precipice of professional success and personal accomplishment. A single mother transformed into a force of conviction within the very system that had once suffocated her. The path ahead remained layered with challenges, but Anna's decision to embrace her voice, to confront her struggles head-on, meant that she was far from finished. This was not merely an end, it was the genesis of a movement that would make waves far beyond the walls of her hospital. With newfound confidence, Anna knew in her heart that her victory was not just a personal triumph. It was a powerful reminder that true change arises from the depths of courage when people stand united against indifference. Now it was time to rally that unity and foster a future where no voice would ever again go unheard. Remember, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. You don't want to miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will inspire you to act. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and comment your thoughts, reactions, and theories about what's next in Anna's journey. Don't wait even one more second to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion.